Welcome back to another video. In this video, we're actually going to look at event queries, and this time we're actually going to look for system event logs that were cleared, so the audit log and the audit log being security and the system log. Let's get into it. So quickly, we're going to look at one of the commands we call BG event. So here again, we could just do a help, and you could type in event and you can see the commands that come up. Here we have BG event, format BG event or format event, format a Windows system event log for all its properties and field messages. And that's what we want to pull. So what we want to do here is look for an event ID that will show us what was removed. So we're going to filter through these event IDs and process that information. So the IDs that we're looking for are 517, 1102, and 104. Those are Windows security events that happen when the event log is cleared. And to show that off real quick, we're going to go into the Windows event log. So you can see we're in Windows Event Viewer, and here's our Windows logs. So in the security tab, you could see that there's a handful of event IDs, and there's an event ID with 1102, and that's saying clear log. If you don't have this, you can actually just emulate this by right-clicking on the application log name, clear log, and then just hit clear. And you can see that it genned an 1102 ID. We're going to do the same thing for system. Here you can see that there was a couple of event IDs, including 104, but this would be the same thing. You right-click on system, click clear log, the log would be cleared, and the event ID 104 would be populated. We're trying to figure out if someone behind the scenes was trying to clear this information so that they're hiding their tracks. This is the stuff that you want to look for to see if there's some malicious activity on the machine. So with that said, we're going to come back to BlueGenie. We're going to do a walk on the format BG event just to see what it entails. So if you scroll up, you'll see a quick description. It tells you all the things that it can do. And if you start looking at all the parameters, you can see that there's tons and tons of parameters for this one, specifically not LogName, schema. Now schema is a remapping of the field names to help with event queries using EQL or SQL. So you can actually do query languages and run specific SQL queries or EQL queries against the event log for really down and dirty specific queries. We're only looking for events that we already know that could exist, and they're fairly easy to pull back without having to run a full-on EQL or SQL query. You can see that there's save paths. You can save that information, user input, so you can actually look for an event log file. So an event log file that was already saved, you can report against that, or you can import it into the event log and then just pull from the event log itself. IDs, this is what we're going to use. Append hash events, so you can actually parse the event hash information to pull out more criteria, and then your format view. So we're only going to look at log name and event ID for this specific task, and truthfully, we have max events. You can see that there's nothing there. It's already set to 0. 0 means capture everything. We're actually going to flag that so that it only grabs a handful of events, and I'll show you what that looks like. So here we're going to hit enter to get back to BlueGenie's main console prompt. All right, now we're ready to run the command. So we're going to do a format BG event. Format BG event. Here we're actually going to use the log name. We're going to do system. We're going to do an ID of 104. And we're going to return as an object. So you can see that we have a system log event that was pulled. Message ID was 104. So we have some information that the event log was cleared in that specific objective. We can actually pull if there was message properties. So let's go back to event viewer, and you can see under system, when you look at this event one, there is nothing in the message field, just the system log was cleared. There's nothing else. However, in the security log, if you look down, you can see 1102. This actually tells you more message information. So you have the audit log and you have who cleared it. Right, so system log actually doesn't give you that specific information. It does down here, but not in, I'm sorry. It does down here, but not in the message field. So you can see right here, we have a user ID, a binary length. This is how the property value from the event log processes that. So we actually have this SID right here. And in BlueGenie, there is actually a command. So if we do get BG help and then type SID, you can see that there's a convert to SID to username, and then there's a convert from username to SID. We can use the other one. So we're going to use convert BG SID to username. The SID is going to be this that we captured there, and you can see that test lab administrator was the user that removed this, that cleared this this log. Now that's a little easier, obviously, in the audit log or in the security log, which we'll do that one as well. So if we come back in here, and actually let me just clear screen real quick to make it easier to read. So if we go in here and we change this to security, and we change this ID to 1102 rather, you can see that we do have the message and its populated information. We also have other objectives. So here we have other items. Here is the ID, and then again, log name, machine name, and all the other property values. So now we're going to run format BlueGenie event, but now we're going to use the same log name. So in this, we'll do system for this one. But instead of actually breaking up each event ID that we want to capture, we know that these three IDs exist, but they exist in two different log names. Instead of filtering through all of those, we can actually do an append to the hash event. So we could filter and add information to the hash. How we're going to do that is we're just going to type in ID equals and then the numbers that we want. So each ID. For this, we're going to do 104, 517, 1102. We're going to return as an object so we can see information there. We can actually call the max events of 1,000 where we don't have 1,000 of those events, but just in case, you can always truncate. And we can now hit enter and see. Now what we're looking for is we're going to process anything in the system event for ID 104, 517, 1102. So we don't have to change those numbers each time we're looking at a specific log. And you can see we pulled back the information we're looking for. We can also go back and parse this as well. Security, and run the same command. And now we didn't have to change the event IDs, right? We're just changing what log to look in, and then it just processes all of our ID information, and it gives us back the information that we were looking for. So now we have audit log, and then we have our system log. Now what we want to do is we want to take that information. So here, remove the return object. So we know the command is working. And like always, test on the host, make sure that our query is going to execute, pull the information back we need, and then go ahead and push that to an artifact, and then push that artifact to other systems. Now we've done artifacts on the CLI. Let's do an artifact through the system, so through the console. So here we're just going to do commands as one of the functions. The parameter is going to be called add, and we want to add this entire string to that. So we type in commands, and we can see that our string was added. If we type in settings, we can see that in that command section, our format BlueGenie event, log name security, app event hash is that information. We want to do the same thing for system to do a double scan. Now if we look at settings again, you can see both commands were processed with a max ID of 1,000. Both the log security, or the security log and the system log, will be parsed for this specific artifact. Now we want to add systems, so we can do systems add, and here, like we did on the CLI, we can actually call a group, and we're going to do, the group is going to be called bgscan001. We're going to hit enter. And what that did is instantly query Active Directory for a security group called bgscan and get all computer objects from that and embed that into our settings configuration. So now if we look at settings, we could see that all of our computer names in that security group were added. Now we have commands list. We can actually add a job ID here. So we can do job ID, and we can call it, let's say, 45s. So now we have our job ID, our commands that we're going to execute, and the command or the computers that we're going to execute against. And now we can actually just type in run. Okay, now that we're done, let's clear the screen. Let's open the transaction directory just so we can see. So open transdir, it's going to open up that folder. We can see in here we have our entire log directory. We have our completed, and we have all of our items. So let's take a look at, this one is 4 kilobytes in size, so it looks like it was one of the only ones that came back with something specific. So we can open this guy up. We open this up in Notepad++. You can see the JSON. We're actually going to use the JSON viewer in Notepad++ and format that into a readable JSON so that we can see everything. And you can see our job ID, our IP address, the comment or the command that we ran. So log name with our ID of 104, 517, or 1102. Here is just cached information. If we use the EQL source schema, by default it's pulling from sysmon, but we did not use that. It's just a flag. But here we have items, and under items we have our message. So we have the audit log was cleared, and then it tells you by this SID, which we could see is the administrator of domain test lab in the message field criteria, and we have our other information below. We have our, this one was for security. We have our system log down here, and we can see the same thing was done in this one. This one has slightly different details. Instead of the information in the message field for that ID literally just has the system log was cleared. However, if we scroll down, you could see the user information, and this is the account domain SID. This was trapped. The value is here, and we can actually match that value up to this one. So 69-500, we know that's the test lab domain admin. 69-500, so we know that the domain admin is the one that cleared those, so it should be fine, no issues. But that's the detailed events of capturing in the console, in the Blue Genie console, with the format of event ID process. And this was to help us identify any cleared events to the system and the security log on all those remote machines. Well, I appreciate you joining me for another video, and I hope to catch you guys in the next one.